Excuse me. All right, let's go ahead and start. If you're in here on the watching the tape of this, go ahead and let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you're here live with me, let me know you're here, where you're from, and if you have any questions as we go. I can see in the camera here, I got this goggle tan from going snowboarding all week, and that was quite fun. It was a surprise snowstorm. They even kept the mountain there in Utah, Park City, open an extra week, I believe, so that folks could get some skiing and snowboarding in that we didn't enjoy during a lot of the season because there was record low snow. So anyway, where we're at here is week 15 of a 21-week program. And to set this up in tiers, for the first several weeks, we talked about what our approach is with the first few weeks we talked about our strategy. We have to have in our brain how it is that we can structure deals with sellers. And it's not just about price. It's more than price. If you can get a great price, we close right away, of course. Sometimes, though, most of the time, sellers want full price, especially in a market like this. We can give them full price as long as we can get payment terms where we pay them monthly for a period of time until we pay them off in full, either as installments against the price or as a lease until we're ready to close in the traditional way. In other words, we'd have an option to buy it during the term of the lease. Sometimes there's no equity on the part of the seller. They just want out from under the debt relief. So we are paying full price, but our full price is, because there's very little equity, is simply to take over the debt and pay the loan off at some point in the future. So you've got price and you've got terms, and we're trying to create deals in that context. And sometimes you get great ones, and sometimes you get some flexibility on the part of the seller, but not perfect enough terms that you want to close on it right away. But let's just give the seller what they want and go ahead and we'll put an agreement together. We'll give ourselves 90 days to close. We go out to our market and we bring our buyers in. And when we have a bird in the hand, we can either close because we have better terms from our buyer than what we have to give our seller, or we can potentially renegotiate with our seller from a position of strength because we have a bird in the hand, because we have a buyer ready to go for us, and we just need to make the terms a little better so it makes sense for us to stay in the middle and close. And when that doesn't, if that doesn't work, then we usually have realtors on our team. Or we have a license ourselves so that we can pick up the listing. Because if they're not going to sell to us in one of those ways, then they are going to be relegated to fishing in the pond that is a virtual monopoly on the part of realtors, which is the retail, price-paying, owner-occupying, loan-ready buyer who is almost always represented by a realtor because it's free. So we need to understand the strategy. How do we ebb and flow with the seller so that we can apply their desires and what they want to do with their house to a strategy that allows us to profit on any house in any market without using any of our own money or any of our own credit. So once you have that in your brain, you have to be able to communicate it. And being able to communicate it usually means following a script for a period of time. Well, we went through that for a few weeks. Going through the script, how do we approach the seller? When do we use virtual assistants to approach the seller? So we start with a stack of leads. What is our posture? How do we carry ourselves? We went through that. After that, we went through a whole series of objections that come up, questions, concerns. The sellers might be willing to work with us on terms because they want to get that higher price. They want to get more money out of their house, but they want to understand it a little bit better, and they have questions. You have to be good at answering those. So we went through how do you answer those. If y'all haven't seen these sessions and you're just coming into this now, I'd go back and look at some of those events, or schedule a strategy call where we can have a discussion about it and see if real estate is a good fit for you, either through just trying to learn from YouTube University for free, or getting coaching, which is obviously what I recommend. The success rate is almost 100% when you have, as long as you execute, when you have somebody guiding you through a system that's been proven effective, and when when the person that's coaching you has done it enough times that there's not much that they haven't seen. So it doesn't have to be me, but I am a big advocate for coaching, and if you want to look into that, then you can schedule a Zoom call. Y'all probably know how to find the link, or if not, I can post it up in the comments if you're interested in that. So by the way, Jackie Robinson weekend, right? So we got the Jackie Robinson thing going on. It actually reminds me, that was a great movie, by the way, the Jackie Robinson movie. But I just wanted to bring this up before we get into the lease option paperwork, the lease and the option paperwork with our buyers. Actually, before I do, let me just kind of close out that earlier thought. So we went through strategy, we went through our approach, we went through objection handlings, and where we are now is how do we memorialize the agreements that we get with sellers from our phone conversation with the seller? How do we put the paperwork together so that we can direct the professionals on how to close? So we talked about the purchase and sale agreement. We talked about, if we have to buy it on a lease purchase agreement. And now what we're contemplating is when we already have the property, either we own it or we have control over it through the agreement or the closing that we did with the seller, and now we are about to install our tenant buyer. And this is where we actually get paid. You make money buying it, at least on paper, right? Even before you've collected any money, because now you've walked into paper money or equity. But we want to turn that into real cashola. And the way you do that, most of the time, unless you're in Texas, in which case you could just substitute owner financing for what I'm talking about. You can still do lease options in Texas. There's a whole lot of rules and regulations that you have to consider. For the most part, I just use seller financing structures in that particular state, but everywhere else we'll usually be installing our buyers on a lease with an option to buy, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. But this can be substituted, with contract for deed paperwork or seller financing paperwork. Things that fit a little bit better with state of Texas in particular. So the first payday for us is a non-refundable option fee that we get from our buyer, and if they exercise their option, we apply that against their price. So they can look at it as a down payment, but it's actually a fee that applies as a down payment if they exercise their option. They need to understand that is a fee. It's a fee that we will give them credit for if they exercise their option, but it is not a deposit that they get back. That is something that has to be very, very clear in the paperwork that you provide your buyer. We're also going to be collecting money coming in from our buyer as rent, and that rent in most cases is going to exceed what we're paying out to the seller, which creates additional cash flow. And I'm talking to you about how you can juice that up a little bit. And then another payday is the difference between what the option price that the buyer has and what we have to pay to the seller effectively. That's another big payday. And if our buyer doesn't exercise the option, all the better, right? Because then we go get a new option fee and a new down payment, put it in our pocket, continue to make cash flow, get debt pay down, potential appreciation, not guaranteed, could depreciate, right? But it won't make a difference to us because we have more money coming in monthly than we have to pay out monthly, and that allows us to profit regardless of what the market conditions are. Now, to get all the paperwork set up for this to work optimally for you, you really need to have access to that paperwork. And here's the conundrum. I don't want to give out 6 or 7 different agreements that we use, that I go through in a painstaking fashion with my clients at a very granular level. I don't want to just give them out in here without context, because people go off and send that stuff out and talk to it without context, try to write it without context, and you can make a mess out of things. Again, this is why I advocate for coaching. It doesn't have to be me, but you need somebody to help you with the paperwork most of the time. And if you trust your attorney to do it for you, your attorney might not be very well versed in the tactics that we use in real estate to optimize our profits. You go to the attorney for legal advice, not necessarily for business advice, if you're smart. Okay? Remember, attorneys are getting paid by the hour. We're leveraging our skills to make gigantic chunks of money and trying to get away from being paid by the hour. Okay, so there's a very big difference in business mentality that you would have versus, an attorney, despite the fact that they're very smart and, make good money most of the time. But here's the conundrum. I've had my paperwork evolve over time as different lawyers close different transactions and maybe edit and fine tune to create basically a work of art that I have as the set of paperwork that my clients have access to. If you come into the coaching, obviously I write the contracts for my clients. We get on calls, and I make sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed, that the contracts are perfectly optimized so that there's no anxiety when going out and doing a deal. You're not going to be able to learn that from YouTube University. You're not going to be able to learn that in this free course. You're not going to be able to learn that in anybody's static course, even the ones that cost $5,000 to $10,000 where you get no coaching. If you get coaching from me or somebody else who's qualified, then you'll have help getting the paperwork done with you by somebody who understands what you're trying to do and will make sure all the elements are there. So I don't want to provide paperwork, but I want to provide you because I think it just will create a mess. I'll certainly provide it to people who are in the coaching program. That's what we do. That's why you have coaching. It does not cost very much to get in the coaching program. It's a pathetic amount of money. And if you're going to be making 5- and 6-figure checks on your way to making millions in real estate, find a way to come up with a few grand to get coaching. I mean, it's really pathetic in this country that people think that they can't come up with a couple $1,000s. If you really want something, you can come up with a few $1,000s to develop the skills that you need to create the aspirations that you are dreaming of. And it's all very possible, but it takes an investment in skill development, guys. There's just no way around that. And the accelerated path is to do it with somebody who's done it before. Now, that brings me to the point I wanted to bring up about this movie. I saw this movie late last night that's on, I don't know if it's on every streaming or network, but it's a movie about Tony Hawk. I don't know if you know who Tony Hawk is, but he's a professional skateboarder. I think he's my age. I think he's 54 years old now. And he is a pro skateboarder, and I'm trying to think, I think the name of it is Tony Hawk Until the Wheels Fall Off. That is a documentary riddled with perseverance. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, and learn from your failures until you get it right. And it just made me think that, so many people fail in real estate because they get discouraged quickly, mostly because they're trying to learn from videos and they just don't have the right tools, the right mechanisms. If you have coaching, you're going to fail and learn, but get to the finish line much more quickly. And what I can tell you is that this is a business where it takes a little while to learn the strategies, but everyone can learn the strategies, but where the deals are actually made is on the phone with the seller. And then that is going to be where, you're going to make some mistakes and you're going to wish you had done things differently. But you just have to do it over and over and over again. And you can see how repetition is the mother of mastery when you watch this video. So if you think that you can't overcome adversity and overcome any of the challenges that you're having with real estate and get to the other side, watch that movie. I think it'll be very, very inspirational because every single person on here who speaks English and has basic competency to understand basic arithmetic can be an absolute superstar in real estate. There's no question about that. And you don't need money and you don't need credit. And you can buy any house from any seller in any market. What you do need to pay for, in my opinion, is the skill development, the training that gets you there. And I'm not talking about a static course. I'm talking about guidance from a coach. But I'll lay off y'all on that. At least get on a Zoom call and see if coaching is right for you, is my opinion. But let's get into this paperwork here a little bit. So we've got these paydays, right? You make money on the front end because you get a non-refundable deposit from your buyer as a fee for giving them consideration of being able to buy the house, controlling the house for a period of time. We make money in the middle because we have more money coming in from our buyer, our tenant buyer, than we're giving our seller. And then we make money on the back in potentially a couple of ways. One, if our original buyer does exercise their option then there's going to be more money that they owe us than we owe the seller, and we make another spread. If they end up walking away at the end of their lease and not exercising their option, well, we can keep them in the house and let them keep running it, or we can move them along and get a new lease option buyer with a new deposit and get all the benefits of having owned the house for a little bit longer, or controlled the house for a little bit longer. By the way, if you didn't see my case study from maybe it was last month, I show an example of this where my total profit on it was over $200,000. And I've got another one coming up, which is supposed to close in May, and I'll put a case study on that. We're going to make over $700,000 on that. Now, admittedly, the $700,000 that I'm going to make on that deal is not really based on some exceptional optimized strategy. A lot of it had to do with appreciation, which is just luck, right? You can't, control what's going to happen as far as appreciation. And we've seen just a rocket launch in real estate markets, and particularly where this property is. So I don't want to say it's the strategy, but there's a saying that luck is the crossroads where preparation meets opportunity. Well, I was certainly prepared to buy, right? Because I did get training. I spent $25,000 getting trained from Ron LeGrand. I started training with Ron LeGrand all the way back in the 90s. Okay, $25,000 in the 90s is like over $100,000 today, probably, right? So that was a hell of an investment. I did everything I could to come up with the money to get that kind of training. I'm only asking for a few $1,000s to come in and get coaching that'll help you make 5 and 6 figure checks on your way to making millions. So think about what the value is that's in front of your face here. That's the first piece. What was the point of what I was telling you? Oh yeah, that luck is the crossroads where preparation meets opportunity. Well, the opportunity came along to pick up that property. I've had it for quite a while because none of my lease option buyers exercised their option, and I sort of set it up that way, and I was able to get the benefit of appreciation because I didn't try to go for like the gigantic down payment right away, which usually tends to get you a buyer that's going to close right away. So you need to think when you're installing your tenant buyer, well, how much time, how much duration do I have before I have to pay my seller off? And do I want to get cashed out of this quickly? Or do I want to put somebody in there who maybe gives me a lower down payment, but is less likely to get qualified down the line, and then I can have them, paying the debt that's on the house down while I'm potentially getting appreciation, and then they don't really have a chance to buy the property out from under me, unless I let them at a higher price after their option expires. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off the topic. That's a really profitable deal, and I'll do a case study on that. What I was going to say is the one that did close already last month, I think it was, is over $200,000, and I'll send you the case study on that if you haven't seen it yet. Just put like case study in the comments, and I'll get that off to you. All right, now let's talk about what you need to do to install the tenant buyer here. Oh, I see we do have people in here now. The comments actually just populated. So let me say hello to some folks here. Terms Daddy gonna bring Easter belongings? I don't know, man. My whole life people have been blaming me for killing Jesus. So so I don't know what kind of Easter blessings I'm bringing. But, to all the goyim out there, happy Easter. I know this is a big weekend for y'all. I'm not really a very religious guy or anything, but Joel Sangerman, obviously Jewish heritage, right? So I guess I'm the blame for all this stuff that apparently occurred way back when. But then again, I guess you got the best of us, right? Because the dude rose from the dead. I'm gonna get myself in trouble. I'm gonna get canceled on this thing here. But anyway, Rob, good to have you. Sean, what's going on, my man, from SoCal? Great to have you on. Carlos in Murfreesboro, good to have you. Let's see. Rob says, or Glenn says, real estate and healthcare M&A are the right fit for the closer. Well, look, there's a lot to that, but not the subject of this call. Frank from Austin, my man. What's going on, my man? Hey, you got to get out there on Lake Travis, man. It's just about that time, Frank. What else am I missing here? Let's see. Who else is in here? Paul Pearson, the closer. Yeah, it's funny. The biggest playoff comeback in NBA history was the Paul Pierce Celtics game. Paul Pierce lives in that house across the street. Well, he doesn't live there. He owns it. He comes and visits Vegas every now and then to have Instagram parties. I'm just kidding. Look up Paul Pierce Instagram party and you'll know what I'm talking about. Even though that didn't happen in that house. That happened in, I think, maybe his California house where I think he lives full-time in California. But yeah, there was a big comeback in the NBA and they compared it to that Paul Pierce game. So it was kind of funny to watch those highlights the other night. Did I miss anybody in the comments here? Going to Sapphire. Matt, I'll send you the case study. Glenn, I'll send you the case study. No, Glenn, I don't need to go to Sapphire, man. All I need to do is look at your Facebook page. You are a naughty boy. You are a naughty boy. And you're a big-time Christian too, man, because I've seen your other stuff right there. So I don't know how you marry up all those booby photos you got going on. And now I'm going to have everybody going to Glenn's page. Everybody go visit Glenn's page. Follow Glenn, and you will be exposed to naughtiness beyond belief. But no, I'm not going to go to Sapphire. I'll just click on your page if I need to go down that route for any reason. Anyway, me and Glenn like to pick on each other a little bit. He's a great guy. He can help you out with things, and he's very active in the group. So anyway, all right. Now, when we install our lease option buyers, okay, I want you to consider a few things. I forgot to tell you the most important thing. How am I going to get you this paperwork? The paperwork. So, crap, I wonder, you know what I'll do? Let me think how I can do this here quickly. Yeah, I don't want to. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is 1 minute after this call ends, I'm going to post a link in the comments. So you're not going to have it immediately, but I'm going to post a link in the comments. It does happen to be an affiliate link. I don't really care about that. You can go to it on your own if you want to skirt that. So I'm telling you it's an affiliate link because I would actually make a few bucks if you signed up for this. This is my good friend Ron LeGrand's Gold Club. It's called Ron's Gold Club, and I'll put a link in there. I think it's a really great value in real estate. I actually don't remember the cost. I thought it was $99 a month, but someone told me it was only $59 a month, which is a tremendous price because he's got so much training in there. And he also, in his, in this portal that you get access to for that little money, all the forms and agreements that you actually need, at least the basic agreements are in there, and that'll get you started as far as being able to go out and get deals signed and then take them to the attorney to edit it. The paperwork that I use with my clients has been edited to a great degree and is highly refined for everything that I'm talking about. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees over 30 years that have gone to taking baseline paperwork and making it really pristine for today's world. But there's basic agreements in there that will work just fine in any state. You still need to close with an attorney though, and have the attorney make the appropriate adjustments. So go to that. I'll put the link in at the end, and you can get all that paperwork. And look, if you're in like a serious pinch and you have a deal, just shoot me a message and I'll give you my paperwork. But I want to at least have a text exchange with you on how to use it. Okay? I don't want to just blast it through the comments to everybody who asks for it. But if you have a legitimate deal that you're working on and you need help with that, let me know. Even if you're not a client, I'll help you out. But I think the best thing to do is actually to join that club there, because there's so much good content in there that correlates very nicely with what we do here. It's just you're not going to get the coaching for as deeply discounted and valuable is what you'd get from me, because my mojo is different, right? I don't take everybody in as a client. My whole play on having the coaching really inexpensive is I get on a Zoom call, I decide if we're a good fit, and if we're a good fit, I might be willing to take you, in under my wing, so to speak. You get coaching, every day for the rest of your life, basically. You're never going to go a day of your life that you can't reach me. And the reason I do that is not to drive coaching revenue, because the price is pathetic. I mean, it's well south of 10 grand. It's only a few K to get started, really. And, you have a lifetime partner. And the reason I do it is because it creates deal flow for me, because a lot of the folks that come in as clients, I get them trained up. They get really, really good at this. And then because they get really good at it, they end up getting in front of deals that are bigger than what they're comfortable with. And they ask me to joint venture with them, in which case we split 50-50. No requirement to joint venture with me. But when we do, those deals are going to close and we're both going to make a lot of money on them. So it becomes worth it for me to use the coaching as a loss leader to create deal flow for me later. That's why I do it. It's not because I'm a nice, generous, altruistic, humanitarian guy, although I am those things, I like to think. And but the reason that I do that is for a profit motive. I make the coaching low. I can pick the right people to come into the program. You're the beneficiary of that. If I select you to come in after we talk on Zoom, and then I am hopeful that I'll be a beneficiary later on with some kind of JV deal that you come across that might be bigger than what you're comfortable with. So that's where that comes from. All right. Now, as far as installing the tenant buyers. Oh, that's another thing, by the way. And I'll offer this. I offer this to all of my clients who come into the coaching program. They get to use my personal dispositions manager, and they don't pay for that, right? So in other words, you don't even have to worry about selling it. We've got this thing dialed in as far as selling these properties. It is dialed in. The last one I did was I got like 22.3 deposit on a $300,000 house. It was $22,300 on a $300,000 house, and we had 3 buyers lined up in 3 days for that. So my clients get to use my dispositions manager. They don't pay for it. They only pay if they select that buyer. So which would be 25% of the down payment, up to 3% of the purchase price. So if you can do better on your own, then you basically have somebody working for free for you. And if you want to use them, then you pay. But you have somebody running the ads, bringing buyers to the table for free. And I'll just put this out there, even if you're not a client, if you do have like a deal for sure that you're trying to install a lease option buyer on, I might be able to work something out for you to, have you use him. I don't know. Just text me if you need help with that, and we'll figure something out to help you out, because I don't want to leave you guys hanging, too badly on that. You should be able to get these deals sold, particularly when I talk about the marketing in the coming weeks. As we get through the next few weeks, we'll get to the marketing so that after 21 weeks, you have the whole story. All right. Now, so here's sort of a checklist on what we do paperwork-wise as far as installing the tenant buyers. The first thing is you need to get an application, and I usually try to collect some kind of a deposit from them while we vet them, meaning we aren't just going to say yes automatically. We will let them know that we don't care about your background, as long as you're not like a sex offender. You don't really want to put sex offenders in the neighborhood usually. So you want to run a background check. I forgot. I'm trying to think of what the name of that law is. Melissa's law or something like that. Megan's law maybe. They'll run a background check and just find out what kind of person that you're putting in there. And by what kind of a person, I don't care. The guy that I just put in that one house, he's paid me every single payment so far. His credit was extremely low, but really good guy. Otherwise, sometimes people just need a little bit of a chance. And he put up quite a big down payment up, so I don't care if he doesn't pay. Actually, kind of hope he doesn't, really, if you think about it. But I'm not rooting against people. But you want to run a background check, and the place to run the background check, there's several places. I like the one called ScreenTheTenant.com, which is run by a guy. You can mention me, and maybe you'll get better service. I don't know. They have good service no matter what. But I'm just gonna write it in the comments here. His name is Paul Ritter. ScreenTheTenant.com. I think I have that in there, right? Maybe I don't. I don't know. Usually it will show the link. Yeah, there it is. Okay. It's an old school looking site because he's an old guy like me. But the service is outstanding, and the turnaround is very quick to vet who you have going in there. They'll take a look and give you an idea of how long it'll take for them to qualify for a loan, what they would have to do to qualify for the loan, all kinds of things that you would want to know. For me, mostly it's the biggest down payment wins. But then if I have multiple down payment offers coming in on the house, I might try to select somebody that is going to give me a duration advantage because I get the debt pay down in the way that we structure the deal, like I talked about last week. And I don't necessarily want them to cash me out right away. Some of you might want to get cashed out right away because it's another big payday on the back end. So it all depends on how you're set up. So those are the first two pieces. Now, again, you can get these, so you can get two things that I just mentioned in either in my coaching, or you can get basic forms that do the same thing in Ron's Gold Club. And the first one is an application. The second one is called an application receipt agreement, where you get either the whole down payment or some of the down payment while you determine who you're going to put in the house. And if you don't select them, you give them the down payment back. If you do select them, you keep that. But if they change their mind, they don't get it back. So none of that mind changing stuff. You know what I mean? So, and that allows you to screen, to keep marketing and screening multiple folks while you're waiting for the background check. And in a market like this, it's important because, it's like, it's going to take a few days to get through the background check, and you might have somebody with a much bigger down payment that you want to take on. I know I'm going a little long, guys, but that's because I'm rambling a little bit on things. But just a few more things. So the third thing that you're going to want is you're going to want a lease agreement, and you're going to separately have a purchase option agreement. I don't combine it as a lease purchase, because if you do end up in an eviction situation and they actually show up for court, which they rarely do, you would possibly be asked to present the lease, and then right on the lease, you don't want it to say lease purchase and then confuse the judge who has a million cases and have them thinking that this requires a foreclosure or something like that. Do you want to be evicting on a lease? And the only time you'd be in eviction court is if someone wasn't paying you monthly. They already made you the down payment. So if they weren't paying monthly, I'd rather evict on just a standalone lease agreement. Okay, and then there's a separate purchase option. Now the lease agreement references the purchase option, but you keep them as two separate instruments. Okay, so again, if you go into Ron's site, he's got a separate lease agreement and a separate purchase option agreement that you can use. Now the lease agreement, there's a very important aspect to that, which is that it does reference the purchase option, and it says, in fact, let me just read you what mine says here. It says, and this is what I mentioned in the email, is that I don't have to deal with any maintenance and repairs. I don't have to deal with any tenant issues. I just collect. Because paragraph, it doesn't matter what paragraph, but one of the paragraphs in here, it says maintenance and repairs in big caps. And then it says in partial and valuable consideration. Oop, I just lost my place. It says maintenance and repairs in partial and valuable consideration of a separate agreement by and between the lessor and lessee for an option to purchase the premises. The lessee agrees to be responsible for the foregoing. And the foregoing, what comes next, is a whole paragraph of maintenance items, repair items, everything that a homeowner would be responsible for, everything that typically a landlord would be responsible for, but that we've passed on to the lessee as consideration for giving them an option, because that has monetary value. So that's one of the most important aspects of the lease. And then on the purchase option, unlike what we do when we're buying on a lease purchase, we actually put a fixed price in for our buyer. Remember, when we buy on a lease option, our price is going to be the mortgage balance at the time of close plus whatever the current equity is. So on a $300,000 house where they owed $250,000, our price would be $50,000 plus the mortgage balance at close. Why do we do that? We want the benefit of the debt paid on. So I explained that last week. Go watch that video. But in this case, where we're selling, we're not giving the buyer the benefit of the debt paid on. We're keeping the benefit of the debt paid on. What we're going to give them is an option to buy it at a fixed price, and when they're ready to buy it, we'll give them that. We'll give them that price. Sometimes they benefit. Like I've had a couple times where we shot up, with appreciation, and I undersold myself because the property appreciated actually beyond what the option price was. So you could tier that if you wanted. You could say, the price is going to be, at the time that they exercise the option, the price is going to be the greater of the option price, or at the seller's option, an independent appraisal can be ordered, and that will become the option price. Now, I never do that, but I've seen people do that before. I just give them a straight up option price. And I don't usually give them a long time. Like, I don't even do 3 years. I'll usually do a year and a half or 2 years, or lower, even a year sometimes. Sometimes only 6 months. It just depends on the situation. So you'll need a separate option agreement. And the most important part of that is that it's a fixed price. Okay, now there's a couple other things. There's going to be some acknowledgments that you're going to want the buyer to make. Okay, and again, this is another thing that you can get. That gold club has so much value. I'll just read you some of the things that are in here. They're going to acknowledge that they've reviewed the terms and conditions and accepted. They acknowledge that they feel that the agreement was negotiated fairly, that they've been fully informed, they're not confused, they're satisfied with the option price, the agreement is final. This is not a loan application. There's no guarantees being made. We advise them to get legal counsel. We advise them to do a financial to get financial advice. This was fairly negotiated. They aren't under the influence of any alcohol or drugs. We made no other promises. We didn't hold them under duress or force this. They're fully satisfied with the agreement. They understand that the value could decline, during the period where they wouldn't be able to get a loan because it wouldn't appraise. They're taking it as is, and that they understand that the option fee is non-refundable. I understand I am paying a total non-refundable option fee of X amount of dollars for this property. I understand 100% of these funds will count towards the purchase price of the property, whether my new lender counts them as a down payment, a credit towards the purchase, a credit towards closing costs, or any combination thereof, should I exercise my option. However, if I choose not to exercise my option or can't exercise my option, then I fully understand there is no refund and I will forfeit my option fee in its entirety. And then it goes on. There's all kinds of other things. Consideration exchange for maintenance responsibility, what I just talked about. By the way, I have another addendum that I can send y'all. That I'll send you. I have an addendum that talks about the non-refundability of the option. That is fantastic. That I'll send you because it's very self-explanatory. Give that to your lawyer and have them add that in to the agreement when they might want to edit it slightly, but they'll love it. And I'll give that to you guys if you just say, what should we say? Addendum. Just type addendum in the comments. Later I'll come in and I'll make sure you guys get that addendum also, in addition to the case study I talked about. And then there's just one more piece for today, guys and gals, which is I like to do something that I call a loan qualification assistance program. I think this form is also in the Gold Club. It's just structured a little bit differently, and I forget what it's called. Maybe it's called down payment assistance form in Ron's world. And essentially what that is what we do is we take the price up, contemplating potential appreciation, knowing that we can bring it down to an appraisal sort of in a, in this way, where we tell the buyer, we're like, okay, so your rent is $1,500 a month on this, and that's fantastic. But to the extent that you could put more money up per month, I will actually give you 100% return on that investment in the house. Meaning if you put $500 more up per month, I will take $500 off the price each month that you do that, in addition to the fact that you put $500 more down. So that means that you're going to have to get a smaller bank loan as we go, because you're putting more money down and I'm taking the price down, which is meaning the amount that needs to be financed is less and less. So, how much more do you think you could put into this each month, where I would give you an additional credit, matching credit, reducing the price by the same amount? So you get a 1-for-1 return on investment, 100% return on investment. You're not getting that in your 401k, are you? Well, if you're putting money in your 401k and you're not getting 100% return on investment, maybe you're better off contributing to this house that you're trying to buy and getting the price lower. So anyway, I take my clients through a long, detailed process on how we do that. And, if you're interested in that kind of thing, then you ought to consider coming into the coaching. So that's the paperwork, folks. I'll get the documents to you that we talked about, meaning the addendum, the case study, and the link so that you can get that paperwork. And I'll just leave you with this thought because it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day out here. I don't know if it's a beautiful day where all y'all are, but it's a beautiful day out here. We should live in the present. Don't worry so much about the past. Don't worry so much about the future. This is my Confucius say piece for the end of our segment here. Because, if you think about happiness, it has to do with living in the now, living in the present. And most pain isn't pain that you're experiencing now. It has something to do with what you're thinking about dwelling on in the past or something you're anxious about in the future. But Oogway from Kung Fu Panda said that tomorrow is a mystery. Yesterday is history. Today is a gift. That is why they call it the present. I love all that old Kung Fu stuff. So anyway, y'all, I do appreciate y'all very much. Have a wonderful weekend. And if you need me, just hit me up on Messenger and I'll do what I can to get back to you promptly. Peace and love, y'all. Take care. Happy Jackie Robinson Day as well, even though that was yesterday. See y'all. Bye.